Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's dive into a story where our OP, who simply wanted to grab a few groceries but instead got mistaken for a store employee. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Got mistaken for my grocery store doppelganger. Karen wasn't having it. I was at the nearby grocery store to get a few things since I didn't have to work for a few days. That's when I saw a woman, probably in her late 40s, yelling at me. I saw her out of the corner of my eye at first, so I didn't realize she was looking at me. I moved out of the way to let her pass. She didn't want to pass me, of course. She wanted me. It was clear that something was bothering her because she suddenly held up some kind of cleaning product and asked, "Why has this gone up to 10 pounds? I told them, "I'm not sure. I guess the store felt like raising the price." She scowled at me because she didn't like my answer, and then she asked me to look in the back of the store for a certain smell of this item. I wasn't really aware that she thought I worked there, so I said, "Like in the storeroom?" with some shame. "I don't think I can just walk in." She almost yelled, "Why can't you?" as her mouth dropped. "When I tell you to do something, you have to do it." I finally figure out that she thinks I'm an employee, even though I have purple hair, green pants, and a hoodie on top of a snapback hat with black and white stars on it. She even got more angry when I told her I didn't work here. "So it's your day off?" she asked. "Please do this quickly for me." I tell her that, yes, it's my day off, but not from the bar down the street. She looked just as confused as I did, so I told her again that I don't work for this grocery store. As she storms off, she looks a little embarrassed, and I don't think much of it. As I go down a different hallway to get my last few things, I see a real employee who looks a lot like me, though she's a bit taller and skinnier, and her hair's almost the same color. That's when everything made sense. For the record, I do most of my weekly grocery shopping in a different store chain because it's much bigger and I have a loyalty card for it, even though this one is a little closer. Since this shop is smaller and doesn't carry some things I like, I don't go there very often, but I needed about a dozen things, so I didn't know my apparent twin worked here. The woman was a regular customer, though, so she was used to seeing a guy with purple hair working there and thought I was him on break. After I talked to him, I'm sure the real worker helped her out. Great story, OP. That woman's entitled assumption that you were obligated to help her, day off or not, was pure Karen energy. The way she doubled down even after you told her you didn't work there is almost as impressive in its audacity. The twist about your twin made it all click, though. Imagine being that employee later, dealing with her misplaced wrath and thinking, "Wait, I didn't even see her earlier." Honestly, if I were you, I'd consider going back just to meet your doppelganger. Who knows, maybe together you could make a viral purple-haired duo TikTok. And our second story. Boss has stringent dress code. I'm a teacher and have been for almost 15 years. The first school I worked at was awful. Even though I loved my kids, the principal was awful. I was hired after her first year at the school when she had more than 30 open positions out of 110 staff. That should have been a red flag. A lot of people left because she was so bad. I'm not going to lie, school was hard. It was just a school for 7th and 8th graders, but there were gangs, alcohol, fights, etc. Some kids were tougher to reach because they were only responding in the way they knew how. We also had some really great kids. Not having that principal around would have made it easy for me to still be there 14 years later. Because the director was mean to students, staff, and parents, he or she slowly took away everything good about the school and its kids. The kids had to wear uniforms every day, but on Fridays they could wear pants with their uniform shirt. That was taken care of by her. She stopped team cheers. She took away the field day. She once told us to be quieter at a soccer game while we cheered for our kids. There would be a dance for the 8th graders at the end of the year. That was taken away. Some of my girls wrote her a letter asking why she took away the dance from everyone, even the kids who don't break the rules and don't get in trouble. They also asked why she didn't just tell the kids who do break the rules they can't come. They were scared to ask her that question in person and to give her the letter. They asked me to send the letter to her. She said, if they have something to say to me, they can give it to me themselves when I tried to give it to her. One year, Halloween fell on a Friday. At the beginning of the month, when we had our staff meeting, she made it very clear that we were not allowed to wear costumes of any kind. During the month, she sent us several emails to tell us that we couldn't wear costumes. I wear a dress with big flowers all over it that Friday, even though I don't usually wear skirts. It was a hobby store where I got 2 huge fake flowers that I then turned into earrings. I also bought a big red beehive wig, and presto, I'm Mrs. Frizzle from the Magic School Bus. I teach science. I'm called into her office. This is pretty much what we talked about. Her: OP, are you at the staff meeting on blah 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 date? The sign-in sheet's right here in front of her, so she knows I was there. Me: yes. She: did you get my emails about not having fancy dress? Me: yes, I did. Her: did you get the emails I sent where I said no costumes? Me: yes, I did. She asked, why are you dressing up? Me: no, I'm not. It's clear at this point that she's very angry. She makes a sign for me. Then what is that? What is it? A dress, not a mask. She asked, what's on your head? I act like I don't know and touch my head. Me: oh, this? Are we not allowed to wear wigs? Are you going to tell the staff? She herself was wearing a wig that day that I'd heard her brag about. Oh, she was pissed, but couldn't do a damn thing. All she did was tell me to get out of her office. This story is peak passive-aggressive brilliance. You didn't just follow the rules, you danced on the line while wearing a massive wig and fake flowers. Bravo! Your principal sounds like a caricature of every bad boss rolled into one, stripping away fun, crushing morale, and being a hypocrite to boot. The fact that her own wig came into play here is the icing on the cake. How could she enforce rules that would implicate herself? She must have been steaming knowing she couldn't win this one. You played it perfectly. Calm, respectful, and clever enough to leave her powerless. Mrs. Frizzle would be proud of your creativity and defiance in the name of joy. And our next story. Neighbor using my water. I was shocked when I came home from a 12-hour shift to find my neighbor washing both of their cars using the water spigot on my side of the duplex. Since the water's connected to my meter, any usage affects my bill. When I confronted my neighbor, a man in his 70s, he casually admitted that they've been using my spigot all the time. I asked him to use his own on his side of the duplex, but he denied even having one. Confused, I texted our landlord, who confirmed that each unit has its own spigot and that they shouldn't be using mine. Despite this, my neighbor continued to act entitled to my water and refused to stop using it, claiming they've been doing so for months. This explained why our water usage had skyrocketed recently. Feeling mad, especially since my partner and I are usually away at work 5 days a week for 12 to 13 hours, I was worried about how to prevent this from continuing. My landlord said he would talk to the neighbor, but I wasn't confident that a simple conversation would resolve the issue. To protect myself, I ordered a spigot lock and a master lock online, wishing they could arrive immediately. In the meantime, I set up a motion-activated camera to record any unauthorized use of my spigot. Sure enough, the footage showed my neighbor continuing to use my water while we were at work. Realizing that this was considered utility theft, which is illegal. After discussing the situation with my lawyer, we sent a formal cease and desist letter to my neighbor. The letter also mentioned the video evidence we'd collected. A few days later, my neighbor approached me, noticeably embarrassed. He apologized for his actions and claimed he hadn't realized the impact it was having on us. He promised to stop using our spigot immediately and to reimburse the money for the bills for the last couple of months. And our last story. Neighbor tried to steal my yard. Years ago, my neighbor decided to pull the most absurd scam to sell his house for nearly 6 figures more than it was worth. To make it look like his property was worth that much, he started blowing all the fallen leaves from his lawn into our backyard every morning, creating the illusion that his front yard stretched all the way to our driveway and conveniently included our gorgeous ancient tree, older than any of the houses on the block. At first, I tried to let it slide. We didn't have a fence separating our properties because our kids used to play together and we'd always been on friendly terms. But this guy was taking things too far. I couldn't risk the new buyers thinking that tree and half our yard belonged to them. I pulled out the official property lines and, surprise, surprise, His front yard ended a measly 3 feet from his house. To set the record straight, I bought some stakes with bright orange ribbons, hammered them into the ground along the property line, and thought, that'll do it. Nope. Next day, the stakes were gone. I found them tossed into the woods nearby. I knocked on his door and told him to cut it out, but the very next day, the stakes disappeared again. This time, I found a passive-aggressive note on my door. Why can't you just be cool and let this slide? I'm trying to sell my house. Cool? Sure, let me just hand over my yard to boost your shady real estate scam. I decided to escalate. Off to the hardware store I went. This time I bought 4 12-foot iron rods. I hammered those bad boys 8 to 9 feet into the ground, watered the soil to cement them in place, and topped them with bright orange ribbon so they were impossible to miss. Problem solved, right? Wrong. I came back from a weekend trip to find the rods gone. Not just removed, he dug them up, leaving holes in a completely trashed section of our yard. At this point, I was livid. My wife said she could practically see the steam coming out of my ears, but then I had a stroke of genius. I headed straight to a junkyard and bought the most useless, rusted-out frame of a car I could find. I didn't just buy it, I hired a tow truck driver to deliver it directly to my backyard, right up to the property line in clear view of his driveway. There it sat, an old, decrepit hunk of metal proudly marking the line he dared to cross. That afternoon, his prospective buyers showed up, only to be greeted by this glorious eyesore. I watched from the window as they stood in his driveway, wide-eyed and horrified. He tried to brush it off, but as soon as they left, he came storming over. Neighbor, yelling, "What the hell is wrong with you? You've ruined my open house." Me. "What's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? You've been dumping your leaves and trespassing on my property for weeks." Neighbor, "I'll call the cops. This is harassment, and I'll report you to the HOA for depreciating my property value." Me, grinning, "Go right ahead. While you're at it, I'll let them know about your leaf blowing antics and property line shenanigans. Should I start with your buyers?" His face turned as red as a tomato. Eventually, we struck a deal. I agreed to have the junker removed if he paid for the tow. He coughed up the cash, and the car was gone the next day. But I wasn't done. The very next weekend, I built a tall, sturdy fence right along the property line. No more blowing leaves, no more trespassing, no more pretending half my yard was his. Oh, in his house, it sat on the market for months. Rumor has it he had to drop the price by nearly $100,000 to sell it. Guess the fake yard didn't add the value he thought it would. Such petty talent deserves a standing ovation. You moved from tolerant neighbor to calculating revenge master without crossing the line. But the rusting car? Your neighbor underestimated your creativity and resolve. Masterpiece move. I like how you escalated gradually, giving him a chance to respond before escalating the ante. The best part, the junker wasn't just a slap, it was a live demonstration that ruined his fraud. The fence was the appropriate finishing touch, both functional and symbolic. Don't tamper with my yard. Congratulations on delivering karmic justice in style and safeguarding your property. Your determination and automobile frame may have convinced him he won cleverly. Pun intended. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.